This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 45 of Healthy Critters Radio on the Horse Radio Network. Healthy Critters Radio is brought to you by Biostar US. Find them online at biostarus.com.
On today's show, Patty shares her experiences getting through Hurricane Harvey in Houston. The breed of the show is the Labrador Retriever. Hedward chimes in on storm preparations for dogs. In Critter Nutrition, Tigger shares information on the latest Biostar products. And in Coffee Clatch, we share storm preparedness tips. Join us.
So here we are, episode 45. Woohoo! It's almost a year, ladies. Almost a year.
2 years.
2 years. 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like
2
an old
years?
pro?
Actually, I think there's a. Yes.
I feel old. I don't know if I'm
I
a pro.
do. I feel very professional. One of the best
So
things.
it's perfect. The old one and the pro one.
Right. Well, the funny
pro.
thing is when we first started doing this, I don't know how many episodes it took, and I called Tigger and I just said, "Hey, Tig, I need to ask you a question." She's like, "What, Patty P?" And I said, "Do you ever listen to the show?" And she goes, "No, I hate my voice." And I started laughing. I'm like, "I'm afraid to listen too." So I think we both, fortunately, hopefully, have gotten over that. But
I've gotten over that.
Yeah. Well, you should get over it. You have a great radio voice.
Thanks.
Tigger's
It doesn't
laugh
sound
is the
great
best.
to me.
Tigger has a very good laugh.
Has an excellent
She
laugh.
does.
Yes.
She does.
That's right.
Indeed.
So before we get into the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of our show today, I wanted to pose a question to Patty P.
Yes.
Dun, dun,
Dun,
dun.
dun, dun.
Okay.
Having never done the annual trek south to compete, like so many folks do, they go from the northern states, they head all down to Ocala or Wellington to compete for the winter. At what point during the year do you decide which horses are going to make the trek?
Oh, that's such a good question. I guess every year that changes depending on the clientele.
Customers.
Yeah, the paying customers. I was going to say that, Tigger, but I wasn't going to be the ones that put cash in my hands, that grease my thumb. My business over the last couple of years changed a little bit to being more people that actually take lessons instead of me training the horses, just because of the nature of where I am in Houston. So this upcoming year, I can't go for the period of time that I used to because I have a 15-year-old son that is very active in football, and Peter's on the road, so I can't leave him home. So it's not like, Peter can come home and be with him. So I only go for about a month to 6 weeks. And so I like to take, what I like to do for myself is I take the normal girls that I have or people that I have in training that want just the kind of that experience. And they also like to go watch me ride and take lessons, because that's always my opportunity to get training as well. So honest and truly for me, this upcoming year is I have a limited amount of people. And it really depends on if they can financially do it, because it's a quite an undertaking going down and renting stalls and doing all that, because that's another expense. And the barn that you leave, because I don't own the barn that I'm at, I'm just the trainer there, they have to pay board there too. So a lot of people are paying double board. And so it really it boils down to a lot of people that can afford it and that are comfortable doing it. And so that's where I am right now. Previous years, it always had to do with the horses that I had if I was going to sell a horse, or most of the horses that I had that were my own, I was always going down for training. So they always went. But I think it's got to be pretty similar for most people that go. It's just a function of, you have to have a certain number in your head that you have to take so that you can afford to be there. Obviously, we can't take time off, even though this is enjoyable. But I think a lot of it depends on just really that the clients that can financially handle it
So
and be able to do it.
at what point during the year do you say, okay, I have to have my finite number now on this day?
For me, previously, when I was going places, I always knew approximately how many horses I wanted to take. I went to a place for 2 years that was really, how small of a world it is, because the barn was built by one of the people here in Texas that I eventually got to meet, and was owned by somebody that lived in New Hampshire. But it was just kind of like all the Texas people were like, well, we know that barn. That's Sue Stone's barn. It's kind of funny how small the world is. But I start to tell people now, are you interested? This is when I think I'm going. I right now teach or ride about anywhere from 10 to 14 a day. So I know that I can at least very easily manage 8 to 9. And I just need to know that I can get off the property and then go take my own lessons. So I will limit myself to probably about 8 or 9. And I will extend it to the people that I asked last year who want to go. I already have kind of an idea who wants to do it this year. So what month are we in? We're in September. Yeah, I pretty much now I'm asking people, because then I'll start to, I've got people that my daughter actually lives in Wellington year round. And then I have a couple people that are there they're working students that have like ended up staying in Florida, and they'll always look at barns and stuff for me. So for me, I start to ask now. Yeah. Most people, but I'm unusual because most people that do this are going to go down for season. I'm 2 years away from being able to go down for season again, just because of my son getting through high school and whatnot.
It's interesting that you say that. I never thought about the aspect of professional riders going down in order to take advantage of the coaching opportunities available from world-class riders who come to Wellington for the season. I never thought about that.
Yeah, that was the whole reason
that's a big part of it.
Well, that's the whole reason I ever went. Because, everywhere I've ever been, especially in Virginia, there's shows, up until October, and they start again in March. So you get a couple months off. But for me, I was going down for me to get the training, and most of my clients were going down because they had a horse for sale, or B, they wanted to show on that circuit, or they wanted to watch me train, and have fun with that. But that's a huge part of it as to why a professional would even go down, because otherwise there's really, what's the point in going down? You can get it locally. Yeah. It just depends on what your goals are. And I have been,
because depending on where you live, you really can't get the competitions locally.
Yes. Yeah. And I have always been so
extraordinary. The level of competition.
Right. Exactly.
I mean,
and that's just gotten better and better and better. I mean, when I first started going down, where Tigger and I met, was in Venice Beach.
1990.
Yep. And
it was the beginning of the circuit.
It was the beginning of the circuit, and we would go over for 2 or 3 dressage shows, and we were just the peons that we would go to WEF, and they had their big permanent barns, and we would be in the tents all the way on the outside. And every year we'd have one good rainstorm that would flood us out, and we'd all trek back and be like, oh, we're never going back again. And then
we come back.
Every year it got bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden we're like, hey, why are we going over there when we could just go to Wellington? Mm-hmm. But the evolution of how Wellington has happened. I mean, people that go there now have no clue. I mean, Grand Prix Village wasn't even there. I mean, that was all Melaleuca trees, and it's just kind of funny.
It was all polo fields around Pearson.
Oh,
and
yeah,
South
absolutely.
Shore.
Absolutely,
that's all it was. And WEF itself was just a bowl, and you sat on the grass looking over the Grand Prix jumping area, which was grass.
Yep.
I mean, we were in the very infant stages of WEF, and what it's become is
been shocking,
amazing.
Well, and just to see the different cycles.
Yeah. Well, we're going to cross our fingers that 7 to 10 days from now, Wellington still looks like Wellington, and is not gator-infested floodlands again. Which brings us to our topic of the day. This is sort of the all hurricane episode this time around, for obvious reasons. If you've been living under a rock, the Texas coast and part of Louisiana has just gotten through suffering the the downpours and endless deluge of Harvey, and they're all now struggling to clean up the giant mess that got left behind. And the Keys and Florida are just now getting ready to have Irma come on shore and do her business here. So we're crossing our fingers that works out for the best for everybody. So we thought it'd be timely to talk a little bit about hurricanes, past, present, and future.
Yes.
So I just want to introduce our listeners to the fact that Patty P just survived Hurricane Harvey in Houston. So Patty, if you would share with our listeners your experiences and what you learned. And
well, as Tigger, as I said to you earlier, I can actually do some of this today without actually wanting to cry. I would like to start off by saying a couple of things. I've lived in Texas 4 years. I have been through a hurricane in Florida. I have actually also been through a horrific flood in Virginia. This was just, those experiences really helped me with this. The one thing I'm going to say, unsurpassed really anywhere I've ever lived, and is that there is just something about the people in Texas. They are amazing. With all the stuff that has been happening in the news, in the last month, there wasn't a person, there wasn't a person out there. If someone had a boat, they were in disgusting waters trying to save people, and it's endless. And everybody who reached out to try to help and send money and send stuff, it was so appreciated, and it helped so much and so many. As this whole thing came on, I have a girl that I have two Roses in my life. One that it works for me in the barn, and she basically is my manager.
You mean I'm not one of them? I'm a thorn?
No, you're not a rose. I just got that. I got it. No, you're my Tigarelli. And she told me that the storm, she's like, oh, look at this, blah, blah, blah. And she's from England. So anything like this is just going to seem odd to her. And, I just, we took notice to it. But, it very quickly, when people from Corpus Christi were evacuating and we realized this was going to come on land, and I just kept thinking, and they kept saying you're on the dirty side of the storm. And, Houston's been through this a lot. I mean, at no point was there a thought that we were going to evacuate, because we didn't know where it was really going to go, which is exactly what they're dealing with Irma. It hit landfall on Friday, which I guess it was about 2.5 hours away from where we are, and then came up the coast. And then everything they said about it stalling and dumping was true. I mean, when I would get phone calls and people were like, we're seeing these pictures and all of these things, is this true? Yes, the pictures you saw were true, and they're far worse than you can even possibly imagine. I think the biggest thing that I felt very lucky and blessed about, and let me tell you, a lot of prayer went into our safety. At the end of the day, I was merely inconvenienced. It was a big inconvenience. There was a lot of stress to it, but I was inconvenienced. 2 miles down the road, people are evacuating barns where they were 6 foot under raging water because of the Brazos River. There were so many different things and so many situations that you just can't even plan for and understand that ended up happening. And any judgment of someone saying, well, they didn't evacuate or they didn't do this, you don't understand until you're in the circumstance. I personally had the responsibility of 30 horses. The owners of the farm where I'm at were in Hawaii, and their daughter lives in the area. And most of the horses that are there are clients of mine. And because there was no way to say, hey, kids, I'm just going to pack my horses up and leave, you have to figure this out. There was such a great sense of responsibility to make sure that everybody who brought horses to me to train, I had to take care of them. Someone dropped a horse off from San Antonio and had come for a lesson on Thursday and didn't even think that this was going to be an issue, But I think the biggest thing is that we had a plan every step of the way. We're right by a creek that has never ever come close to the barn. On Monday evening, after just pelting continuous rain, we realized that there was a possibility that we were going to have to evacuate some of the horses. And so at that point, I have the most amazing people in that barn. The men that work there, the actual barn manager. Rose at this point is stuck in her neighborhood because roads were flooding that never should have flooded. Like they just, because of the continual constant rain, 50 inches of rain dumped on such a widespread area of Texas and all over Houston, that any rains that were, dumping up to the north were eventually going to come south through rivers and streams and whatever. And then that affected reservoirs, and reservoirs would be breached. And then they're trying to let go of the floodgates, and the floodgates, because they were made in the 40s, ended up not letting out a little, letting out everything. So then those people, it was just constant. It was just constant. But the biggest thing is just having a group of people together to make plans. And, we had 3 different ideas of what we're going to do. And in the end, I realized at no point the creek behind us, even if it was at its highest, was never going to be pulling so hard that if the horses had to stand in their stalls in water, that it wasn't going to kill them. And I was like, okay, so if that happens, and if it gets beyond this, like there was always these stages of where we were going to go. And that the only reason I even could think that way, or the other people, was because I'd been through a pretty catastrophic flood in Virginia, which was, again, unprecedented. There was no way to prepare for it. And we got very lucky. I had very good friends that came in the middle of the night to help me. But because of that, I was like, okay, we have to have this plan, and then we have this plan, and then we have this plan. And I had reserved 30 stalls at Great Southwest to bring all the horses there. But the problem was, then as the rain started, you can't get the trailers out because it had dumped 20 inches of rain. I couldn't get trailers out. We'd pulled a couple trailers out on the driveway, but we couldn't pull them all out to get 30 out. So going back and forth to the Great Southwest posed a problem, because then we were landlocked. We didn't know we were landlocked because we didn't know about these areas that were being flooded just by the consistent, unbelievable amount of rain. So it just every day there was posing new threats of what to happen. So we knew the best thing for us to do was to stay where we were, to stay calm, and to keep the horses safe. And in the end, that's exactly what happened. But realizing that, you can't get anywhere because you don't know if the road's flooded. And if you're in a horse trailer, you can't always turn around. So, there's a thing here, and I guess it's got to be throughout the country. It says, turn around, don't drown. Well, they're not kidding, because you just don't know where that water is going to pull you. There was a family not far from here that were trying to evacuate some elderly couple, and I think both of them had dementia, and they had children in the car, and the van was just swept away into the waters, and they ended up finding it later. And this was on Tuesday, like well after you would think the main part of the event had happened. But like I said, in the end, we were inconvenienced. I live in a community. I was telling Tigger and Jen this earlier, about 18 months ago, when we looked into this development, because it's so close to the barn, and it was right down from where my son's high school. My daughter Hannah and I drove, and we're like, oh my gosh, look at this cute little hill coming into the neighborhood. Well, it's a levee. And the levee 2 years in a row have now saved us, from our houses being, destroyed. And my inconvenience is that I was out of my house for 10 days. I fortunately had wonderful people that could put us up. But guys, there were people that didn't know what to do. All the hotels were booked. They were saying they wouldn't take animals. There were so many levels of things that you just can't even, it's even hard for me to remember at this point, because it just sort of, you just got to the point where it wasn't even that. Yeah. And it's not even that I was numb. It's just that it's like, okay, that's not important anymore. Check that off the box. But during all of this, throughout the night it had to be 48 hours. Every hour on the hour, we were getting tornado warnings. And which is the one that's the bad one, the warning or the watch? I can't remember anymore, but they were just and it would say the warning, and it would say, take cover, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're out in this pelting rain trying to take care of horses and do stuff. There's nowhere to take cover. You just kind of look around, and eventually you just silence your phone. I am not suggesting that. to anybody. If you hear them, you're supposed to take these warnings, but there was no sleep because it happened all throughout the night. You just don't know what's going to come. And the biggest thing is we were so lucky because we had a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And, if the plan C had happened, I knew Jesus was coming back. You know what I mean? I was like, there is no way we're going to make it, guys. So, but in the end, we were very lucky. And then to just, wake up each day and see people say, hey, I need this. And I will say this, I love /hate Facebook. Facebook saved so many lives this past week because people were able to put I need this, blah, blah, blah. And then I would share it. Somebody else would share it. Someone would call me, they would text me. And then there was a group of people that were helping people down in Wharton and this was the other part of this, is people would evacuate and then they'd evacuate to an area that would flood and they wouldn't know it. And at this point, the rain had stopped and it's still flooding. So yeah, it's a little crazy.
Well, that's one of the functions and this tiny detail may have been lost on many people who were not able to obsess over the weather reports like Glenn and I did. It was considered not 100-year flood, but 1,000-year flood, which means once in 1,000 years you can expect that amount of rain to hit that particular area. There's no way when people make those plans of, if we have a flood, you evacuate to area A. When you have a 1,000-year event, there's no way they could know that area A is going to flood.
And
so
here's
you really
the other
get stuck
thing.
between a rock and a hard place.
Well, you do, because there's nowhere to travel. The roads are closed. You learn that Google Maps on your iPhone isn't as good for road closure as Maps, by the way. That's just a little tidbit. Yeah, because I found that out pretty quickly.
When we get to tips, I have a pointer on that one.
Okay, good. We'll keep. Yeah, and it's just, and I think that, and then someone said, and what I learned from everybody that's been here, for years and years is, if you're going to evacuate, you got to evacuate a week out. And then there are a lot of people here that go, you're so stupid, why are you evacuating? Blah, blah, blah. But they had a tropical storm, Allison, I don't know how many years ago, and people were evacuating in horse trailers and they all got stuck because there's 6 million people in Houston. If you're going to evacuate, that takes a month.
Yes. Yes.
So, that's why people stayed. And I was, and I didn't feel like, I felt like there was maybe a little bit of criticism and that all kind of went to the wayside because if something's coming, you have to leave a week early. That's all there is to it. I mean, that's all there is to it. But
the population's so dense. Exactly. Yes.
And you'll just get stuck on the road. And that's where people got killed during a tropical storm. They got killed during a tropical storm because they were stuck on the highways going north. And then you don't know where it's going to go. Then I had a very dear friend of mine that during I think it was during Rita, evacuated to another part of Texas and got up there. And guess what? That's where the hurricane was going. So she turned back around and came back to Houston. So you don't know. It is unpredictable. It is where, we're very, very fortunate because we have social media, we have media, we can, be very in tune. It's also a level of fear that some of these people put into you because it's their job, but you really have to have a plan. You just don't think about where you live until this stuff happens to you. I mean, what's today? It's today. I don't even know what today is, but the sun's been out for the last 3 or 4 days. You drive around and you see the silt from the floodwaters on all the grass. And, it's hard because that if you live near any body of water that's flowing, you may see things come down the river that you don't want to see. And there's a lot of animals that people couldn't get to. But let me tell you, there are a lot of animals that the people saved. And there were cowboys on every corner, girls, with trailers and horses tacked up, ready to go in the minute they thought or were told that someone needed help. And there's story after story that is unbelievable. Just the people that I stayed with in this beautiful home in the back of, there's a neighborhood behind them, in the pelting rain. There was 12 people that ended up evacuating to a barn and then had to go to, thank God they had a second story, and they had to be rescued. They had to kayak them in all day and all night, kayak these people in. And these were people that had come from Victoria because they were trying to get out of the storm. So it was just, it was overwhelming. It was, so many parts of it were wonderful because you see human nature wanting to help each other and no division of people, just, people wanting to help people, and the generosity and the just, the overwhelming sense of community. Because I keep wanting to focus on the positive, especially with the, what's currently, heading towards Florida. You think about, how do you tell someone to be prepared? And I think you have to be able to depend on the people around you. And for one, was very lucky because we weren't disappointed.
Okay, Jennifer, you have a question.
I do. Sorry, I forgot to turn my volume back on. You had a plan A, plan B, and a plan C.
Mm-hmm.
The parts of each of those plans, because I'm sure different ingredients and different ones of those got used up. Was there anything that you would have gone, that part of the plan wasn't good. I should scrap that if I ever have to go through this again?
Oh, good question.
No, there wasn't one thing. Well, no, there wasn't. Considering I had read, I wanted to know how to tag the animals.
Mm-hmm.
I figured I'm going to be overkill. I wasn't going to freak anybody out. And keep in mind, I have all these clients that I'm texting, and I'm very lucky. I think I'm lucky because I'm bossy. And I just basically said, okay, kids, here's the thing. You don't show up. This is how I'm taking care of your animals. I'm taking care of them like they are my own. When I make a decision, this is what's going to happen. If you don't like it, you can come and get your horse yourself. And not one person even questioned it, but you have to be sort of like very cut and dry.
Yeah, you do have to be clear and concise and businesslike.
Yes.
You can't waffle. Waffling is always bad in an emergency situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I found out, I had been told that you can mark the horse's hooves. Well, when you have that much rain, as much rain as we had,
no way.
You can't see their, and you can't use enough permanent marker, and it's the fat permanent markers. And fortunately we had a variety of colors, which we will talk about later on in the show. But yeah, they're really, no, the thing is, plan A, really, it never got to plan A and a half. We never had to go to plan B. I'm very lucky because we have our barn, which is situated right next to a creek, and these people have lived here for 20 years. And out of all the hurricanes they have come through here, they've said it's never flooded. Well, it definitely got the highest it's ever been because of the 50 inches of rain. But my plan was, if I had, we moved a couple of horses. So I guess plan A did get completed. I moved a couple of horses out of a few of their stalls, and then put a couple horses outside, and the owners were all fine with that because they were, with all the tornado warnings, they were sort of like, I kind of would rather them be outside. Well, one thing I'd like to point out is Texas has gumbo. And there was a point to where these horses were out, and I looked at this one mare who was a little bit more sensitive, and I mean, they definitely had dirt on them and whatever, but I was like, holy crap. Well, we had to bring her in because the gumbo had dried on her, and she was totally.
Explain gumbo.
Gumbo is definitely something the devil came up with. It's a very sticky sort of, I guess, mud. I'm probably not going to do this any justice. If anybody from Texas is listening, I apologize. It just becomes it's like red clay in Virginia.
Okay, soil, dirt.
Soil.
Crud.
Yes,
Gotcha.
sorry. Yes. Yeah. And but what it does is when you have a horse that's outside in the rain, it just forms into something very hard, like a brick. And so you just have to be very mindful. It can suck their shoes off and whatever, and you just have to always be very careful of it. It's just hard to get off. So that was really the worst stuff that we had to deal with, except for the fact, the horses, the wind that came through when we got to the other side of the storm, because we were on the dirty side of the storm for the first 2 days. And the dirty side of the storm is where all the rain comes and the heavy winds and all that. When we finally got to the other side of it, I thought it was going to be a little bit better. It truly wasn't. Because then, I'm in the barn and it sounds like the roof's going to come off, and constant, again, the tornado warnings are coming up and whatever, but yeah, so we were, and I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't know. The only plan that I didn't have in looking back was, well, what if there's a tornado? I don't know what
what
I don't know if I
plan can
could
you
have done.
make? You hide
Yeah.
under the bathtub. That's all you
Yeah.
can do.
Well, we were kind of in an open area. It's sort of like, at that point that got more to the plan C, where I'd be like, okay, this is my time. Told everybody I loved them.
That's it.
No, I know where I'm going, but yeah. But no, we were again, and the only reason I can say that with such confidence is I had been through some stuff before and knew how to handle it. And I had an amazing group of people around me. We would make every decision by committee. Okay, we're going to do this and this. Everybody raise their hand. Everybody raised their hand. They said, yes, this is what we want. And then I would text the clients and say, okay, you have given me permission to do this. Yes, I do. Could be some of the consequences. Not a problem. You're in charge. So it was really, really, it went like a well-oiled machine.
Hello.
Hetty.
Hello, Hetty.
Hello. Patty and Jennifer, and no doubt Tigger is there as well, causing some sort of havoc.
That's Tiggy.
So, Hetty, our show today is sort of dedicated to Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma.
Oh, hurricanes.
Yes. So we would like your, what are tips you can share with our listeners on storm preparations for dogs? We're assuming that at the top of the list, the human must pack cheese.
Yes.
Well, sure, for certain cheese is necessary. Now, if I may begin by saying that we have applied to be a foster home for dogs who were evacuated from Texas before the storm, so that we will be doing our own little part in our hurricane effort.
That is wonderful.
Oh, thank you, Hetty.
I love to hear that.
I, of course, typed the application myself, so I think some questions might come up from the foster people, but I indicated that while the servant leaves many issues to be desired, she is tolerable for a short period of time for a dog who has been in a cage.
So you're going to do some fostering?
Well, we hope so. We have not yet been approved.
Aha.
I wonder if they need to
because
know
of
that
the
you're on the
iniquity.
radio.
I mean, if they know that you have a radio show, I would think
Yeah.
you'd be like Flynn.
That was not a part of the application. In fact, if I may say, the application was very limited in its capacity to imagine the sort of home we could offer a foster dog.
Well,
It
what
asks
would you do
questions
for preparation? I mean,
Oh,
there's going to be another hurricane coming. So what do you advise for the people in Florida?
Well, so here is some advice. It may, seem a little strange to some, but I recommend it nonetheless. The first thing you should do is get your animal flotation devices. We have floaties. You can
Excuse me?
get a little jacket. You can get a jacket for your pet so that if there is a problem like a flooding or whatever, you put the jacket on your pet and then you attach your leash to the jacket. Better to put it under the jacket in case something should happen. But that way, if you need to walk a long distance, your pet will have flotation devices.
That's good advice.
And you can bring your pet with you. And
That's
then
good advice.
another thing to really remember is when you're leaving, you pretty much only have what you can carry in case you have a long way. And so a collapsible bowl for water, you may not be thinking water because it's a flood, but a collapsible bowl packed flat. And then you can have clean water. And a water receptacle such as a water bottle is a good idea to bring with you, one for you and one for your dog. Now, if you should have cats, I don't, first of all, they're not going to be happy. They're going to be pretty mad.
True.
And so if I may recommend a few things, put your cat in a small crate that is not too heavy and has a shoulder strap, like a bag, like I have a bag like that. You put your cat in that, and then you put the flotation device on that, not on the cat. Do not put the jacket on the cat, or you will not take it out of your house. Put it on the bag. Lock the zipper so the cat cannot escape.
Okay.
Don't put the jacket on the cat. But you should
Okay.
have water for your cat too, and a little bowl for your cat. And you should have food for your dogs and your cat and yourself. And although we are not really talking about the welfare of humans, because I am a humanitarian at heart, if I may recommend that people who are suspecting a big storm is coming should put some supplies that they can carry into an emergency pack. So you should bring with you the following things: Cliff bars or power bars or something that you can carry. It's light. You don't want heavy things, because you're going to get hungry as you walk for miles and miles and miles while I am floating in my little jacket. And then you should also pack for yourself some things like a waterproof flashlight and a
Yes.
crank radio, because the power is going to be out for like a year. So
A whole year.
crank radio is going to be a good plan, good idea. You crank it up, good way to burn some calories, and then you can go right ahead and you can put your stupid cell phone right into that, and it will charge your phone, and then your family will not think you died.
That's very good.
Excellent tips.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are my pieces of advice. Oh, you should also have floaties for you.
Oh,
Floaties. Is that what these are called? Floaties?
You know, like a life jacket.
Ah. Well, that
Because
would
if it's
be a
very
good thing.
deep water, you
Yeah.
should have that. You may think, oh, I'm a good swimmer. You're not a good swimmer. Okay,
Not
let me
in
just
that.
get this straight. No, you're not going to be a good swimmer, and you're going to drown. So get your life jacket on.
There you go.
Excellent advice, Hedwig.
Thank you,
Yes.
Hetty.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Hetty.
I spend a lot of time consulting emergency manuals because I find life to be so precipitously terrifying.
Oh,
Thank you. We appreciate that.
thank you.
I know some humans who think the same way.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very common experience. You know, the world is ending. Apocalypse now.
Sort of zombie apocalypse.
That's right. Well, here in Florida, we're
Mhm.
expecting
It's
the
zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, we're going to have the alligator apocalypse in approximately 5 days. So we will see you on the other side. And thank you so much, Hetty, for stopping by with those helpful hints.
Did you see the alligators can climb trees?
Oh, don't la 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 la.
Go sit.
This is
Kennel.
hell, nor am I out of it.
Bye bye, Hetty.
Bye, Hetty. Thanks.
Bye.
And now it's time for the breed of the show.
So we are keeping in our water theme for the show.
Didn't think of that. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, it was a Tigger suggestion, and I've decided to do Labrador, which, as we hopefully all know, is quite a water dog. I'm going to raise my hand. Tigger never had a Labrador. Have you?
I have.
Oh,
I've
of
had
course you have.
2.
Really?
Yes.
Well, something I learned today was there is a best breed list, and the Labrador is on it. I'm going to look a
They're
little bit more
one of
into
the
that.
most popular dogs
Mhm.
in America.
And actually, I guess worldwide, because again, I've not had them before. I have a lot of friends that have them. I know that they're really great dogs. And I know a lot of people get the Labrador and the Golden Retriever a little bit confused, but they're definitely different dogs. But the Labrador was basically bred for hunting. They're a great sporting and hunting dog, but basically for waterfowl. But more so for long, durable, different types of terrain. Duck hunting type of thing. So they're really quite a durable dog, which then ties into them being a very good, easy to train breed. So they're very obedient, but they definitely need to be trained, which is, with any dog, obviously. But they're just, it sounds to me like they are just big lap warmers. Everywhere I read up on them is just like, if you don't mind 80 pounds in your lap, that's a good dog for you. If you don't want your dog sitting on your lap, not the right dog. Personal, great family dogs. They, a couple things that I kind of knew, they use labs a lot for disabled, autistic children, autistic people. I'm sure, you guys both know this, but for the blind, I mean, I knew that, they have a lab that she got that I guess didn't work. I guess there's breeders that actually breed the dogs to be therapy dogs. And some of them that don't make it end up, they foster out or they adopt out. And these dogs go through this incredible training program of different things that they have to learn to do. Because if it's for somebody that's, in a wheelchair, they've got to learn how to open a refrigerator door. And have you guys ever seen them? The dogs do this?
Yes.
Yes.
But it's remarkable, and the level of training that goes into it is remarkable. But anyway, it's one of their number one uses. Well, then they were used as war dogs, and one of the number one combat training dogs for like the British Army, and because of their trainability, they have used them a lot for the military as well. So anyway, getting more into their general appearance, they're stocky, strongly built, sort of medium-sized, somewhat stocky, short-coupled, and they have an otter tail, which helps them with swimming. They are, this is funny, they're very good eaters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love to be with their person. They're very loyal to one person, but great family dogs. They do need their exercise. It's, moderate amount of exercise, not like, a terrier would be, but not as bad or not as like low key as like a basset hound, but they do need their exercise. Fantastic with kids. Again, like I said, they've been used for therapy. They're therapy dogs, so they're good pillows. They lie on the floor. The kids can lay on them. They're a great family dog for, one of the biggest things when my kids were growing up, I always wanted to have a dog that I knew if one of them jumped off the couch, they could land on my dog. Well, a lab would have been a great choice because they're just very even-tempered. And again, I just go back to the obedience factor. And because they're good family dogs, their lifespan, this is a terrific dog for families with kids because they can live anywhere from 10 to 12 years, which is good because they're a bigger dog, but not a huge dog. And as we all know, the bigger dogs don't last as long. Males are anywhere from 60 pounds to about 90. Females can be 60 pounds. Yeah, to about. It's
Try
so
to lift that get it into your car when you have to go to the vet.
Well, it's so funny because it says 59 to 88 pounds for males or 59 to 77 for females. So, just round up. But they're big dogs and they're stocky and they're, I'm sure lifting them into a car wouldn't be easy. 3 different colors. There's yellow, black, and chocolate. They have kind of the basic health concerns, hip dysplasia, I think they can have some eye issues, but again, whenever you're buying a dog, you always want to go to a reputable breeder. But this, I think it would be it's a great family dog. If you like hunting, I think they're probably a good barn dog.
Absolutely. Great barn dog. And their love of water, any kind of water, swimming pools, horse troughs, creeks, ponds. They're even more water dogs than an Aussie. And they're great dock diving dogs.
Yeah. And what is that one sport where they have to dive in and go after something? What is that called? I can't remember the sport of what it's called. It's not, I want to say fly ball, but it's where they dive into
diving, where they
is it? Yeah.
And they jump after their toy, and it's measured in how far and how high they fly.
Yeah. They're supposed to be outstanding at that. So
they're unbelievable.
And I think for stuff like that, they have endless energy, but they're not going to be your endurance dog that can go and go and go and go and go and go.
No, they're not an Aussie.
Yeah, they're not an Aussie. Yeah.
They're not wound or border collie. They're
right,
not
exactly
as intense.
But I'll tell you, they are beautiful dogs.
They're beautiful dogs.
They're
And they,
beautiful
you know,
dogs.
most of the labs that that I've known that people have had or that I've had, they've been the best all around dog. You know, and they love kids and they love people and they're friendly. They're
Yeah.
kind of like Newfies.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's kind of funny because one of my first Newfoundland was a Newfoundland lab, which got me into Swissies. But it was absolutely a great cross between the two dogs. So I recommend this is a great dog, easily trained, perfect for families.
Yay!
Yay!
And now we're at Critter Nutrition. And I'm going to talk about 2 new products from Biostar called Quantum and Impulsion. As you know, Biostar has never been a company that follows the pack. We stay true to our whole food principles and reach outside the box for important foods and plants that support equine health. Biostar has introduced ingredients to the equine industry that are unique, such as Chromin X3 and Optimum Healthy Weight, our high IgG colostrum, the Indian gooseberry extract in Circuvate, and the organic Haritaki powder in Theracom. It's probably not a big surprise to many that Biostar once again brings to the equine industry a unique and very special Ayurvedic food from the Himalayas, Shilajit. We've incorporated Shilajit into our 2 new formulas, Quantum and Impulsion. These are multi-dimensional formulas that on the surface both provide protein for muscles, fat for energy, and fiber for the hindgut. Quantum contains coconut meal along with certified organic pumpkin seed meal from Oregon, the result of pressing oil from pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin meal contains high levels of bioavailable protein, fiber, and omega-3 fatty acids. Pumpkin seeds are also a good source of arginine, synthesized into nitric oxide in the body. Nitric oxide plays a critical role in circulation, in regulating acid and gastric mucus secretion, and has gastroprotective properties important for horses with ulcer sensitivities. Impulsion contains coconut meal plus hemp seed meal, the result of pressing hemp oil from the seeds. Hemp seed meal provides high levels of bioavailable protein, fat, including the fatty acids, and fiber. Impulsion has an impressively low non-structural carbohydrate value of 5.1%. Below the surface of these 2 muscle-supportive, energy-supportive, and hindgut-supportive supplements, Quantum and Impulsion provide unique cellular support, the bedrock of energy in the body. No matter how much fat we feed a horse for energy, or how high the carbohydrate load from grains, or how much protein is in the diet, there is a critical cellular process that converts food to energy. Small organelles inside the cells called mitochondria convert fats, sugars, protein, and oxygen into usable sources of energy with the help of an essential nutrient made in the body called CoQ10. This nutrient plays an important role with the mitochondria in the conversion of usable energy known as ATP. ATP provides 95% of the cellular energy that powers all living functions in the body, and it is referred to as the energy currency. If the mitochondria in the horse's body are functioning less efficiently due to aging or metabolic imbalances, there will be a reduction in ATP, which will affect muscles and organs and cellular repair. Chronic oxidative stress and inflammation can also reduce the efficiency of the mitochondria, as can toxins, diet, chronic stress, or certain medications. Because the mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cells, they are critical for cellular energy, signaling, repair, and growth. A loss of function in the mitochondria will increase muscle fatigue and can affect tissue repair, increase joint deterioration, and increase immune system imbalances. Mitochondrial dysfunction can be both the cause and consequence of chronic inflammation or chronic stress. Simply feeding more energy foods will not help the functioning of the mitochondria. Mitochondria reside in large numbers outside the nucleus of every cell. These organelles contain their own DNA and exchange biological signals with the DNA housed in the cell. Animal research has demonstrated that alterations in mitochondrial function in response to mild stress can lead to distinct physiological changes in hormonal, metabolic, and behavioral systems. According to a study, quote, stressful experiences on their own do not cause damage or disease. Rather, it is the organism's responses to stress that have the potential to result in physiological dysregulation and dysfunction, culminating in allostatic load and disease. In this emerging paradigm, mitochondria lie at the interface of genetic and environmental factors contributing to disease trajectories. Shilajit is a nutrient-dense biomass resin formed during the late Triassic period in the Himalayas and Caucasus Mountains. It has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for over 3,000 years and translates from the Sanskrit to conqueror of mountains, destroyer of weakness. It is classified in Ayurveda as a rasayana food, meaning rejuvenating and revitalizing. Western herbalists have classified Shilajit as an adaptogen, a substance capable of increasing the body's resistance to adverse influences. Adaptogens have a normalizing or restorative effect on the body as a whole. Research has shown that Shilajit supports the mitochondria to convert fat and sugars into ATP, thus enhancing the production of ATP. Shilajit improves mitochondrial function, enhances CoQ10, and protects the mitochondrial membranes from oxidative damage. In essence, Shilajit goes to the heart of cellular energy. Both Quantum and Impulsion provide real food and nutrients to support the whole horse, beginning with cellular energy and muscle energy. Whole horse support includes bone remodeling, collagen production, circulatory support, and gastroprotective qualities. The differences between Quantum and Impulsion. Impulsion is geared specifically to the easy keeper metabolic horses that need low NSC food. The NSC of Impulsion is 5.1%, but these horses also need muscle energy for their work and training. These are the horses that don't need more calories. They need more mitochondria reinforcement for metabolism and reduction of inflammation. They need more ATP for cellular energy. Impulsion also supports bone remodeling and collagen production from the effects of organic kale, which is an important source of vitamin K in concert with Shilajit. Quantum includes muscle recovery support and additional bone support. Research from Australia has shown that vitamin K1 plays an important role in bone metabolism. Vitamin K1 is produced in living green plants through photosynthesis, but unfortunately begins to degrade when the grass is cut and made into hay. Horses who are not on fresh pasture 10 to 12 hours per day may not be getting enough vitamin K1. Quantum also provides the super antioxidant astaxanthin, which is beneficial for reducing oxidative stress and inflammation. There are many supplements and feeds that provide horses with energy via fats or grains or high protein, and yet none of them address the fundamental cellular component, the mitochondria that are essential for energy production, cell signaling, cell repair, and cell growth. Impulsion and Quantum support the proper functioning of the mitochondria, which is the foundation of real health and real energy. So we've arrived at Coffee Klatch, and in keeping with our theme of the show, we're going to talk about storm preparedness tips. And I'm going to start with Patty, since she's most recently been preparing, and
yes. And hopefully this will help people that are in Florida. So, I mean, mainly I'm going to talk about, horses, just because that was sort of my biggest thing. My animals, my dogs and were all with me and very safe. So I'm just going to address what was my biggest thing. Learned a lot of stuff. Number one, you need to, I'm asking everybody in my barn. I'm not asking, I'm telling them they will have their own hurricane kit, which is going to be a very big, fat, permanent marker. It only, because you want to mark them on their shoulder, your number and name. If, the winds get high, and I'm not, I've heard in the past to do it on their hoof. The problem is the rain that we had, it wouldn't have stayed on their hoof, and you can't see their hoofs. So you want to use either silver for like a bay or a black horse, but you want to use the fat marker, and write your name and number. There's key tags I think you guys have seen them. Like sometimes when you
on halters, like the thoroughbred people
Yeah.
use.
Right, but they're a rectangle and they're enclosed. Yes, they're not the circle ones because those are just exposed sort of paper. You want the ones that are in the plastic, in addition to marking them on the shoulder because you want to have a plan A and a plan B, right? For that. And the other thing you can do is there's also the collars, the halter. Not the halters, but the tag, the things you can put around their necks. The only issue with that is that if they're nylon, that becomes an issue, but that is just another consideration. Have 3 plans. If you're, in a barn, have what you think will happen, what you think is going to happen, have what could be beyond that, and then have seriously, I've got to get these horses on a trailer out of here. For instance, have horses, the trailers pulled out on a driveway, not through, deep mud, that kind of a thing. Order your hay and your grain beforehand. Have plenty of hay and grain because it's not the initial impact of the storm that's the problem. It is the weeks afterwards because you don't know if your hay or your grain supplier is even going to be open. So you have to have plenty of sources of that. Obviously, try to have a generator if you can just to run the water, which would be great. But have those. I travel with these when I go to Florida because sometimes horses don't like the water in Florida initially. But I have these jugs of water that I travel with. But fill up every available bucket of water, muck tubs of water, outside
horse
tubs,
troughs,
horse troughs, anything, and let it sit if you have to. And last but not least, because of the barometric change, the winds, the stress, I cut all the horses' feed in half. We were fortunate. We were actually able to continue to work the horses, keeping their schedule. Horses are very schedule oriented. If you can keep their lives somewhat the same, even though there's stuff surrounding that's going on that's crazy, but cut their feed in half and give them plenty of hay. Do this during the worst part of the storm because then that way their horses aren't getting the same amount of grain and then not getting out of their stalls. And they're still eating. They're not hungry. But it just is an important factor that a lot of people forget. And then they're a week down the road and they're like, oh, geez, I totally forgot that. I always do that kind of going into it. Cut it in half and then increase their hay. What do you have, Tiggy?
Well, I got a tip from God knows where I was on the internet about a company called Water Bob.
Oh.
And it's a disposable, one-time use only drinking water storage of 100 gallons.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it costs like $23.95. Or it did when I told this to somebody else yesterday and they went online. It had jumped from 23 to 83. Today I'm just looking at it and it's $99.99.
Oh my gosh.
So a good time to be buying it would be after Irma has passed and just have it on hand.
Yeah.
They say you can put it in your bathtub. Actually, Peter is, erecting a sort of I don't want to call it a scaffolding, but an area where it's mounted up so he can gravity feed it, and you can fill it up with a garden hose.
Okay.
It does have a siphon with it. It keeps water fresh for 12 weeks.
Wow. Oh, that is awesome.
It's awesome. So it's called Water Bob Emergency Drinking Water Storage.
Oh, that's
and it's on Amazon, but I would wait until
after this is over.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know what, Tigger? That's something, guys, we should put up on the Facebook page for the listeners because that is an outstanding idea.
Oh yeah, I thought it was brilliant. And then there is another one, and you can get ones that are bigger, like 300 gallons and 200 gallons.
Right.
But there's another one, I can't find it, but you have to do a search on Amazon that is designed, it's not as big, it's maybe only 40 or 50 gallons, but it's designed to go in a wheelbarrow.
Okay.
Oh yes, I know which one you mean. I've seen those.
Yeah.
They're from Europe.
Yeah.
It looks
What
like a
is-
giant plastic bag, but it's got a little twisty knob on the front, and you put it in a wheelbarrow, and you dump out a wheelbarrow, and then the water comes out the little spigot. It's really cool.
Yeah. It's on Amazon.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So you could, walk down the aisle and fill buckets with it.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And from the pet point of view, really stock up on pet food because
you don't know.
Running out of that is H2 Go bag. That Jennifer is just that's the name of it.
Yep.
So if you need it for your wheelbarrow, it's the H2 Go bag.
Yep.
I know this is common sense that you want to make sure that you've got plenty of animal food, but make sure you have plenty of animal food for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's funny because my daughter lives in Wellington, and having been fresh off this thing, she said, "Okay, what is your advice?" And I said, "Well, they told us to be ready for 2 weeks because one of the things that people have to realize is
afterwards they can't necessarily get trucks in
because
supplies.
now, because we're having this gas shortage. Like
there's the electricity issue.
Exactly, and so when we had gone through the hurricane in Florida, we were out electricity for 2 weeks. So that was a thing there. And it was the same thing with gas.
Too, with Hurricane Isabel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just been everywhere. Common denominator. Let's not talk about that. But anyway, but the gas shortage thing becomes an issue too. And so that's why you just have to make sure you have plenty of food for your pets. And they said for the Houston people, be prepared for 2 weeks, which we did. What do you have,
Jennifer?
Jen?
What are your tips?
Well, I just thought of this one the other day, and you alluded to it earlier in the show today, Patty, how your cell phone is not necessarily helpful when it comes to trying to navigate flooded roads and closed roads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the interruption in cell service, the interruption and lack of being able to charge your phone.
Right.
Your emergency kit, your go bag, whatever you want to call it, needs to have a road atlas, which is a United States road atlas with all the states, and B, a state map in the state from which you are
That's
fleeing.
a great idea.
Yeah, very
because
much.
That's going to tell you a whole lot more than your phone's going to tell you.
Yep.
The phone.
Yeah,
I always have an atlas in my car.
Yeah, the phone's just going to ask you to make a U-turn.
Right.
So that's
my Peter he always has an atlas. It's funny, he's so old fashioned, and for somebody who drives for a living, that's his go-to. So it's good that you mentioned that.
Another one, I've been seeing this a lot today already. We are in Ocala, which is literally central Florida. We're smack in the middle of the long part of the state. We're centrally located. We're not on the coast, but in light of recent events in Texas, everybody's taking this threat very, very seriously here. So already, it's hard to find drinking water at stores.
And bread, evidently.
And bread, evidently.
Oh, bread's always a big deal.
Yeah.
Bread.
But
yeah.
Hello, you don't need to buy the water. Right now, you have perfectly good running water. All you need are containers.
Exactly.
Yes.
So either purchase a bunch of inexpensive water-safe containers or recycle ones you've got. And these are all things that I have done in emergencies when I needed to collect water in a really big hurry. You can use Ziploc baggies.
Mm-hmm.
You can, if you stack them upright like file folders in a box, they work pretty good.
Wow.
Empty coolers, empty Tupperware, empty wine bottles. Yes, they work. Yep. They have an extra benefit that the water tastes better too. No. So any empty container will do, in other words. We've even been known to empty out plastic totes that we store files in for our business in a hurry, So there's no reason to not have water, people. If they run out of drinking water at the store, make do. And I can't stress enough that you really need to have, like you said, Patty, forage for your horses. A lot of people, they need to get the heck out of Dodge with their horses. They forget to bring food along for their horses. They put hay in the hay net. Stuff
Right.
and cram as much
Hay.
hay or cubed
Yeah.
forage or whatever you have available to you as you can to take with you, because that's what runs out first, because that's what the horses need most.
Yep.
And
Yes.
cubed hay is your friend because it's so easy to transport. Or pelleted hay,
Yeah.
if that's
Mhm.
if that's what you can get a hold of. When I go out tomorrow, I can only fit 6 bales of hay in my hay room at a time. Well, if I have to be a week, that's going to be getting low, you know.
Right.
So I'm going to pick up a couple of extra bags of cubed hay so that if push comes to shove, I have a reliable source of forage for my animals for an extended period of time.
And may I also suggest chaff hay?
Chaff
in
hay, yes, that comes in a big
all
plastic bag like
plastics.
shavings do. Yes,
Yep.
an
it's-
excellent source.
and it's a super food.
Yeah, it's great for them. They
Super
love to
forage.
eat it.
And they love to eat
It's
it.
easy to store.
And you don't have
easy
to
travel
soak
with.
it
Yep.
Mm.
like a cube. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Chopped
I always
hay.
have several bags of that on hand always.
Now down
And
here,
and the point is that whether you're dealing, I mean, look at the terrible fires in the West.
I know.
So even though we've been talking about hurricanes, if you have
Right,
to
and water.
evacuate for a fire, the same things apply. Of course, you got to get your animals out of there.
right.
Yes.
I think the time, because of Harvey, is over that we just sit and watch something. I think Harvey has been a great lesson to everybody, whether it's wildfires or tornado warnings or terrible thunderstorms where you're going to lose power. It's just a good idea
to
to
always be ready.
try not to be on the
Yeah.
edge.
Yeah.
Have
Yes.
your car mostly be filled with gas most of the time.
Yeah.
I learned that lesson the hard way in Hurricane Isabel. And
Mhm.
I found that having these big cooling devices, because in Hurricane Isabel, I had to drive 2 hours one way to get ice.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, a million people were out of power in Virginia.
Yeah.
So they couldn't make ice and they couldn't keep ice.
Yeah.
So, 4 hours a day, I was going to get ice, and I went, this is nuts. So I stocked up on these big, freezing bags for cooling food, and I've got them on hand. And if we lose power, I just get them out and into the coolers, and I don't have to worry about ice for a while.
You know
Yeah.
something I discovered here in Ocala? I don't know if they do this in other places in the world. Some of the grocery stores sell dry ice.
Dry
Oh.
ice?
Yes, you can buy dry ice
Really?
at the grocery store,
Oh,
which
that's-
lasts 10
that's
times
interesting.
longer than regular ice.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
So I told Glenn, I said, why don't you
Hmm.
stop and pick some of that up today? Because if we lose power in our for our refrigerator, we have a teensy weensy itsy bitsy refrigerator. It's going to defrost in a hurry. It's like
Right.
apartment size. So we are SOL trying to keep anything cold. Oh, and that was something else that I came up with because I'm in charge of errands tomorrow. If your emergency medical kit for your horses and your pets is depleted, like mine is, before the disaster hits, it's a good time to make sure it is restocked. For example, I have no Banamine left.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I said,
Yeah.
I really,
Yeah.
if I'm going to be someplace where I don't plan on my horse getting sick, but by golly, if there's an issue and he can't get here for a
Yeah,
day and a half
antibiotic
or-
cream.
exactly,
is-
Antibiotic
Yeah.
cream
is a
and
big
vet
one.
wrap.
and
and
vet
vet
wrap,
wrap.
exactly. I've
Yeah.
always got tubes and tubes and tubes of antibiotic cream around. It's one of my favorite things in the world.
Yeah.
So I have to go out and get a few things restocked there and get that taken care of. So, yeah. And also, if you have more horses than spots in your horse trailer, it's a good idea to make friends with other people who have fewer
Mhm.
horses than they have spots in their horse trailers and have a plan
Amen.
A and a plan B. Right, Patty?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah.
Amen. That's the biggest thing is just having a way to get all the horses out. And,
Yep.
and it's just looking at Facebook now and all of our friends that are in Wellington, thinking about what they're going to do. And, some people stay there year round now. And, I've heard a couple people say, I owe it to these horses. I can't leave these owners' horses. And that's exactly how I felt.
Yep.
I couldn't leave these horses. And we were fortunately, we were prepared even though we didn't know how little we were prepared, if that makes sense. We just happened to have stuff and do a little bit of reading. And again, I would like to point out, as much as I love to hate Facebook, it saved so many lives. And because it was such an easy way to go, look and see what is the best way to prep yourself for an animal, or a horse or whatever, like finding out about not riding on the hoof and riding on the shoulder, that type of a thing. Mm-hmm. It was such a major thing in just getting help out there. But Jen, you're so right. If you don't have a horse trail, if you have a horse and you don't have a horse trailer and you live in an area where hurricanes come through, you either need to buy a horse trailer or you need to make sure you have a way out, because that was the biggest thing, is too many people assumed that they had a spot on my trailer. And I was like, no.
What I've noticed this time around, again, Facebook has been so very useful, and it's very interesting watching this whole thing play out, is a lot of people who haul livestock locally or regionally are putting posts up saying, hey, I've got a rig. If you need to get your horse to safety, contact me and I will put you on my list, so that when push comes to shove and the governor comes on and says, okay, everybody out, you are on the list and have a spot in my rig. And they're doing this, and the storm's not supposed to be here till Sunday. So they're doing this already, which I think is kind of refreshing to see people going, oh gosh, maybe I should make a plan.
Well, yeah, and I think, but don't you think so much of this is because Harvey just happened, and it was
so close on the heels.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, I know some of these things kind of come through and they're kind of in and out. I mean, Harvey stayed for days and days and days. I saw this Facebook post, something about, and I probably won't do it justice, but something to the effect of, that's what we get for naming a major hurricane after a man. He came into the area, never asked for directions on how to get out, just, petered around, blah, 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 blah. And it was just like, it was just sort of like, oh my God, that's so true. But yeah. But I think that the number one thing that I'm going to walk away from this is to, just because it's not a hurricane, like you said, Jen, or it's a fire or it's something, you just be prepared. Don't allow yourself to get low. I know everybody does that. Things happen, but we were so fortunate. We had just gotten a hay delivery. We were able to get grain. We were, so our horses, like, at the very least, even if I couldn't control, or we couldn't, I keep saying me, it was far from just being me. It was a group of wonderful people. We were so prepared to at least feed and water our animals.
Well, that's, if you can't do that, nothing else matters, does it?
Well, yeah, right? But even if they were going to be standing in water, I was going to take care of those suckers. You know what I mean? And that was huge peace of mind. Huge. So good tips, guys. Really, really good tips.
Well, hopefully none of us will have to use them in the immediate future again.
Yeah,
I agree. But
it's always good to be prepared regardless.
And just one other tip, if I may, is there are tons of people that have small animals, and they don't think that they can go. The one thing I learned during this whole thing is hotels will absolutely take animals if you're desperate. Do not leave your animals in homes. You just don't know what's going to happen. Put them, they're better off in your car. They're better off being with you.
Yeah.
In the hotel parking lot. Yeah. I am telling you, I mean, we had a man that had to bring his donkeys over to these wonderful people, Steve and Nancy Kemp, where we got to stay. And this was a man that played professional football. And he had to bring his donkeys over because his house was flooding and he didn't expect it. And it was the most touching thing I've ever seen. He was going to sleep in his car by the fence. And we were able to bring him in the barn and take care of him. But, people need to tear a page out of his book, because just don't think it's going to be okay. Take your animals. One of the biggest devastations that has happened in Houston is too many people got out thinking that people wouldn't help, and it's not true. Put your animals in the car. Put them in the car with you. Get them with you, because it's going to end up. Start driving. Call friends. Get on social media. Do whatever, but do not leave your animals at home. They need to come with you.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go.
So.
And with that, we're going to wrap this up. the Choco Block full of crazy, cool, fun, and slightly scary tips.
Yes. But preparing.
And stay
We're
safe,
preparing.
everybody.
And stay safe.
everybody.
Stay safe.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks to our sponsor, Biostar US. You can find them online at biostarus.com.
Get the Horse Radio Network phone app on iOS or Android by searching for Horse Radio Network in the App Store. It's free and easy to use.
For details about today's show, go to healthycrittersradio.com, where you can find links, photos, and more information about our guests.
As always, we love your feedback. Please follow us on Facebook under Healthy Critters Radio.
Be sure to visit all the great shows on Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Love your dog.
Hug your horse.
Feed your chickens.
Clean your litter box.
Dance with your goat.
Slither with your snakes.
Howl at the moon.
Hang with your hamster.
Party with your parrot.
Waddle with your walrus.
Outwit your otter.
Cuddle your cows.
Rap with your raptor.
Go chipping with your chipmunks.
Forgive your fox.
While hedging your hog.
We also recommend that you rack with your raccoon.
Gyrate with your giraffe.
Meditate with a meerkat.
Uber with your orangutan.
Facebook with your flamingo.
Ponder with your panda.
Walk with your Wookiee.
Yawn with your yak.
Twitter with your toucan.
Go raining with your reindeer.
Dropbox your dragon.